Welcome to Woven Soft Edges, Deep Roots, a space where bodies, culture, and transformation meet. I'm Sarah, a body worker, a tender of community care, and inviting you into conversations that nourish and ground. If you love exploring the intersections of healing, creativity, and belonging, consider supporting this work on Patreon. Your generosity helps sustain the quiet labor of community care and keeps these conversations flowing. You can also connect with me on Instagram and TikTok. Links are available in the show notes. Now, let's dive in. Hello, this is Sarah Newberry from the Woven Podcast, and I am really excited to talk with my two guests today, Karla and Michelle, and we are all Mother Circle facilitators. But if you don't know me by now, I am a somatic body worker, barefoot massage therapist, continuing education provider, and all things pregnancy and postpartum from massage to Mother Circle. We'll just say it like that. So welcome, Karla and Michelle. I'd love to hear from you if you'd like to introduce yourself for the listeners, and then we'll just get started.
Hello, I'm Karla Johnston, and I'm here in Durham, North Carolina. And I am an Ayurveda wellness coach, supporting mothers, most who are navigating life transitions of all kinds. And I have a special interest in supporting adoptive mothers because I am a mother through birth and adoption, and I am a mother circle facilitator as well. So all things mothering women, that's really where I am. I think the through line is usually embodiment. I'm really delighted to be here. Thanks, Sarah.
And I am Michelle Kenefick. I am in Connecticut, and I am a licensed clinical social worker, licensed in Connecticut and Vermont. And I own a group private practice where we really specialize in providing trauma treatment to adults. I'm a somatic experiencing practitioner and pretty steeped in that world. I've been an assistant many times, kind of all over the country and even into Canada, and then the Connecticut coordinator of the SE training here in Connecticut. So pretty steeped in that, and then EMDR trained in a whole bunch of other things. So I have that as my professional background. I teach at a couple of different universities, at the University of Connecticut and Fordham in the MSW programs, and do a lot of workshops and teaching in other arenas. um, I That's kind of what I do professionally. And Karla and I are always really clear that we come with a certain orientation in terms of what we do professionally. And as we make our way into this arena, we really want to make sure that we're distinguishing, sort of what we do. For me as a therapist, is really parked outside of the room when we come into Mother Circle. That Mother Circle is a really different experience, and it's not about teaching and coaching and all of those things. Um, it's really about holding space for women who are mothering children that they haven't birthed. And so, in whatever way that form comes, usually adoption. But Karla and I are, well aware that women come to mothering in other ways as well. I mean, it can be grandmothering or stepmothering, other different ways. Yeah.
What a beautiful collaboration that you guys have going on here, between Ayurvedic women's care and then social work and trauma work. That's powerful. That's incredible. If you're okay with it, I'd love to talk more about what you said about parking those professional things outside the door, because I think, and what we were kind of talking about offline with what blessing ways are, it's and how we sometimes need these things modeled for us. I'm curious if you want to kind of go into a little bit about what makes Mother Circle in general different than other group spaces, but then specifically what you guys are creating with how mothering shows up in different ways than what maybe we traditionally think it is.
Yeah, I mean, the obvious difference to me is that when you are in the field of mental health, everything is very pathologized, right? We work with diagnoses, We bill insurance through, what I would consider as kind of a medical model, even though most social workers chafe at that, right? We work really hard to not be associated or work underneath kind of that umbrella. Um, and so this allows an opportunity to have the opposite, where we're really normalizing and yeah, I even want to say like decolonizing is another word that comes up for me. Like this idea, right, that like the fourth trimester that we know from Kimberly Ann Johnson, right? Um, it's not attended to. It's not attended to generally. And so we've identified one of the things that was so like striking, I guess is the word, when Kimberly was talking about postpartum and how it's synonymous with depression and anxiety, right? It's like a foregone conclusion. And, Carla and I talk a lot about the five pillars, which I'm gonna, pause and let her pick up on that. We pathologize the experience of pregnancy and postpartum, and I, I really hope that all of the mother circle facilitators around the world are really working to dismantle that and to really bring this education and awareness to the foreground and to stop pathologizing and stop making this a mental health issue, that it's a community issue. And
Yeah,
we need to hold mothers.
absolutely. Just saying that, I remember, in my first mothering experience, thinking like almost like postpartum anxiety depression was like this thing that would just like hit randomly or something, where I was like,
Mhm.
am I gonna catch it? Am I gonna catch the depression or something? And it's like, then whenever I started to really study this and realize, like you said it so perfectly, this is a community issue. This is a community issue.
Yeah, it's a non-community issue. That's the
Right.
whole point of mother circle, right? It's like we're trying to come back to, right? Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, I'm a postpartum doula and I did a postpartum doula training with Innate Traditions. And even some of the postpartum doulas that I know around here don't understand that very
Mhm.
fundamental piece. It's very much like, oh, I'll hold the baby while you take a nap, or I'll do your laundry, in this very like utility type care. And it's like we're still missing the point that it's that community piece coming together to hold, to um yeah, to be held. What a gift that is.
Yeah, I think the mothers that Michelle and I are working with in the adoption circles, these are moms who they probably have a team of practitioners for mostly their kids, maybe for themselves. Um, and there's a lot that they've been doing in mothering to just really help their child or children be well supported physically, mentally, emotionally. Most are understanding the nature of separation for kids, and many have probably been through some sort of trauma-informed parenting workshop class. Right. And I think what the story of Michelle and I meeting is we both went through Mother Circle and the facilitatorship training separately. And we were connected through Jessica Conley, who is one of the facilitators of that training. And it was just like instantly, like we just connected, and it was so many pieces that the Mother Circle itself held us. I mean, I'll say it held me. I was in it, I think 5 times before I became a facilitator, and I just kept going around. I'm a mom through birth and adoption through three daughters. At the time, I was also my mom was we were navigating Alzheimer's and a number of other life transitions happening. So that space was holding more than just me as a mother. And because I think when we are mothering, we're also doing everything else. So there's this sense of like sometimes feeling like being pulled into these directions or even like underwater while trying to hold up our kids. And for adoptive moms in particular, there's a lot of layers of complicity of mothering children that you didn't birth. And the external world and the experts very valuable. I think, Michelle could speak to this more, but what I've seen in the last, 15, 16 years of mothering through adoption is the resources are so much more available in therapy and really looking at, it- when we're talking, because it's always child-centric, right? And that's really good that we're getting the resources for our kids. But how are the mothers being supported? And when the mothers are being told, like, you need to take care of yourself and, you need to regulate yourself so that you can model this for your kids and co-regulate for their kids. But meanwhile, going through the transition of motherhood, no matter how you become a mother, this is the piece that we speak to. Everything changes physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, relationally, sexually. It's like there's no area of our lives that doesn't go through some sort of transition, but that transition isn't really marked. And that's where sometimes, our experiences, psychology doesn't necessarily meet that, and the medical world doesn't necessarily meet that. But when women come together, this is the oldest code, like women circling. I was just saying before we hit record, I'm sandwiched between, um, last night I had a bunch of mothers here and their kids, and we're all friends and we live in different places now. And it was just such a beautiful space to be with other mothers and not feel like you have to, you know, I don't know, like in the mother circles for adoption, what we say is that we don't have to explain. Mothers get to show up and we all understand that there are layers of complexity to this, but we also understand that we're each unique and each adoption is unique and each child is unique and each mother is unique. So there there are definitely going to be differences, but there are these common threads. So when we're holding the space for just adoptive moms, there's a different kind of coming into the circle and just being. And we are really clear at, this isn't a space for coaching. This isn't a space for therapy. This is not a parenting group. No, we're not giving you parenting tips. Like this is a space to be held. Um, and the curriculum, as we all know, of Mother Circle just is really strong. It's a really strong container that, when Michelle and I first got together, we wondered, should we be changing anything in here? Does it need to be different? But we actually use the same container that all the mother circles around the world use. And within that, though, our conversations look a little different and some of our reflection questions might look different.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's a powerful space that I think is just so unique. Um, Unique to anything that's been existing for a while, but then when you're in it, I mean, so many mothers say, and my experience was, it felt like a remembering. Like, why? Why are we doing this? Like, when did we lose this? And
Hmm.
it does take, time and space and facilitators, but it feels like when we're there, like the circle itself, just gathering, has its own magic.
Yeah, I think that's the medicine.
That's the medicine.
Right? And it is this really unique space. And it's hard as you were talking, Carla, I was listening to you and I was thinking like, what are those threads? Like, what are they? It's hard to name.
Mm,
It's just this sort of unspoken knowing, right? It's that sort of the deepest level of attunement, right? That we talk about this in attachment, right? That attunement between a mother and a child, and that's kind of what shows up in these circles. And for me, going through Mother Circle, it was really powerful. And then there were pieces of it that didn't resonate at the outset. And I say this all the time when Carla and I talk about it. So I went through it twice, and I would, find myself driving down the road, and 2 or 3 weeks later, I would like sort of be struck by, oh my God, how did I miss that? It's so obvious to me now. Um, and yet there were pieces of it that still didn't really land because I am a mother through stepmothering and through adoption, fostering to adopt. Um, Fostering that then turned into an adoption. Um, and so there are those layers, but it's almost hard to articulate the knowing, the attunement that happens in that space with other women that have come to mothering in a similar way.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I'm listening to you both and I'm thinking of the challenges that we struggle with Mother Circle in general. Like we were talking about modeling, like see, like letting mothers and women see that there is power in gathering. But then, and we know that, right? We know that when we go to like support groups or things like that, we feel seen and held and heard. And yet I still see people like avoiding it, or like, you know, like they're like, what actually am I getting out of this? And it's like, well, there's a myriad of things that you could possibly get out of it, but I also can't tell you exactly what you're going to get out of it, you know? But the possibility of being seen, held, and heard could be enough, right?
I think that's a huge piece of it, just being seen, held, and heard. And, I think for all mothers, and I speak from lived experience as a mom through birth and adoption, but also working with so many women in various ways over the years, is that threshold isn't marked, in general for most mothers. But then for an adoptive mom who, again, like one of the things we even talk about, like, so the there's three stages, right, to a rite of passage. And there would be the separation and then the transition and then the integration. And we're so lacking in integration. But even so then for those of us who are mothering through adoption, what is that transition? Is it the moment we decided to adopt? Is it the moment we received a referral? Is it the moment some might have met their child for the first time? Is it the moment if they traveled within the United States or elsewhere? Is it the first time everybody came together in the whole family if they have other children? Like, is it the first time? Like, there are a million moments in there that might have been the moment of, the birth moment of becoming mother. And so we actually use the language of becoming mother in a lot of our workshops and look at that whole window of time and let each mother sort of claim that for herself. Um, because those are some of the differences. Like there's just different there are definitely so many overlaps and so many things that feel universal to all mothering, but then within the adoptive mother journey there are a lot of nuances. And I think this is where, and when we have these conversations in circles, someone will be like, yeah, I don't like a baby shower, I never had that, and but what does that look like, and some people did, I actually did have we had a shower at the time that where people brought gifts, but it, it's different. Like, and as we're stepping into all those unknowns, the people around in the community also sometimes just don't really know. Um, but it's beyond a baby shower, right? It's like how is the mother being supported in that transition? And and I think what we probably all might agree with in Mother Circle is that ideally an intergenerational circle, like having a village, this is where it happens. Women who are ahead of you on the journey, and like we're all in different places, and everybody brings wisdom into that circle, right? Like yes, there's medicine and wisdom in the circle itself, but every woman who comes, we trust that she's coming with wisdom, and she's coming with her stories, and she's coming with something, and it becomes so reciprocal um, in the process.
Hello, friend. If today's conversation is resonating with you, I'd love to invite you deeper into the Woven community. When you join Patreon, you're helping sustain the quiet labor of community care, supporting the life and work of a body worker and tender of soft spaces. Even small contributions ripple outward and make this work possible. You can also follow along on Instagram and TikTok for somatic practices, reflections, and ways to stay rooted in your own soft edges. All the links are in the show notes. Now, back to the episode.
There are a lot of pieces that are layered with complexity through that. One of the things that I think about, a lot of women that were in the mother circle that, when I went through it, when we shared the story of Anana, they, really saw that through the lens of delivery, labor and delivery. And I didn't have that experience. And so it felt really inaccessible to me. And this is one of the examples where I was driving around 2 weeks later and I thought, oh my God, like my labor and delivery was 2.5 years of not knowing the outcome of what was to be, right? So there were, little things along the way. Um, but that it's not that the labor and delivery isn't there. It just looks really different,
Hmm.
right? And then I think about the five pillars, right? So I was fostering, and my husband and I were self-employed. There was no maternity leave. Even if I worked for an agency, you don't get maternity leave for fostering. And so I had a 3-day-old baby dropped off on a Thursday night at 5 o'clock. Here you go. I had taken 8 weeks of classes to get licensed as a foster parent, right? It's a very different lens. And when you go into it that way, even we didn't, adoption was not on the table at the beginning. My job was to facilitate reunification, right? So the whole lens is very different, right? And it's different. I mean, that's just my experience. It's different. You could talk to 100 other people who went through foster to adoption, and every single story is different and unique. And you can talk about domestic adoption or international adoption. It's so different. Um, and then fast forward to the five pillars, and I think I didn't even know about the five pillars, first of all.
Michelle, can you name the five pillars? Because
Yes.
maybe everybody watching doesn't know.
I can.
Yes.
So connecting with nature, um, community of wise women. What else do we have? Nourishing food. What else? There's five.
Extended periods of rest.
Oh, yeah. So wait, the one I can't remember. Oh, right. Extended periods of rest. I just started to move into that phase, and my son is 7. We didn't sleep through the night for 6 years. Yeah. And what is our last one? Is community wise women, nourishing food, connecting with nature. Did we say that one? Rest. And what are we missing?
Why do we not know this?
Why
Where
do we
did you
not?
start? Rest, nourishing food, nature, um,
Community of wise women.
community wise women. We're cracking ourselves up here. I think
Here's one
I'll
more.
say, like, in the moment, I'm stuck on rest because as Michelle's talking, I'm thinking that's a really key piece that for all mothers. But, my first whole year, we grew our family from we two children entered our home. They were 1.5 and 3.5. And for the first year, one was sleeping with her a year and a half. Her eyes were half open, right? Just on high alert. She was 3.5. And then my youngest was getting good sleep, but she was waking at 4:15. First bird song, ping, awake. And then in the night, and then I also had a 6-year-old. And so the I have extra kids in my house right now
You're
as part
good.
of this reunion, and they clearly just forgot. Um, but there was just so much going on that made sleep really, really challenging. And I think that's a piece that we're finding with most of the mothers that come. That happens with a lot of mothers, with the mothers who are coming to Mother Circle. Um, and I guess what I want to say is like one of the things that we go through in Mother Circle is just understanding like the cycles of life and the seasons of life and motherhood, that there's always going to be invitations for us to step into that again, to consider it's never too late. Like that, like there's these circles and these cycles come around that just keep inviting us into, okay, what would it be like if we stepped into these to deep, or better or more, however you want to say it. Like maybe it's not going to all happen at once, but like leaning into how might nourishing sleep happen. And I will say, like, I slept great last night, and I got together with a bunch of women last night. When we're together in Mother Circle, like it's a totally different kind of self-care, is what we might say, right? It's a way of nurturing that can support better sleep, that where we can talk about the things that we want to do or know might be helpful to us that we didn't get, but instead of pushing, it begins to unfold. There's a deep nourishment that happens in the circle.
So the fifth
Sleep.
one is loving touch.
Oh, yeah.
How did
I
we
was gonna say there was a touch component that we're missing here.
how did we forget
Which
that?
is
I know.
really key for
It is
moms who
key.
feel, the phrase is sometimes just touched out, but in adoption, we may have kids who just are really, clinging, and we may have kids who are very avoidant and just, touch is not there at all. And how to navigate that, in our relationship first with ourselves and then with partners and with our kids. But, even as women, so most of our circles, because Michelle's in Connecticut and I'm down here, are online, but there are so many circles all around, and I occasionally lead them locally too, where we're together in the physical space. But we do talk about self-massage. We look at other ways, but ideally in that postpartum or that post-mothering time, mothers would be gathering and there would be care and there would be ways that we were all supporting each other because when mothers are supported, rested, well nourished, receiving loving touch, having a community of wise women and out in nature, like these are things that nourish. And then that actually helps our children and our communities thrive too when mothers are supported.
I
I
was
want to go I want to go back to your question though, Sarah, which was why don't people flock to these opportunities, right? Like, right? And I think it's really in part because I think we're so child focused. And I think particularly, I mean, I think this is again one of these universal themes where I think biologically, I think culturally, we are very child focused. And in many ways that's great. But it's like the train without the caboose, right? The mom has been left at the train station and the kids are getting all the care. And especially in adoption, like Karla said, I mean, we're really good for the most part at ferreting out like all the experts, all the providers. Um, and yet there is not that place for mothers just to be held. Like Karla said, there's the parent coaching models, and I'm a facilitator of, circle of security. It's a parenting curriculum focused on attachment, right? And that's all great. But I think it's almost like I'm not sure people know it exists. I'm not sure people feel like they're allowed. And I don't mean like in a permission sort of way, but like, am I deserving? Like if I lean into caring for myself, am I not doing something for my child? Like I think it becomes really complex, and I don't think that's specific to adoption. I think that's all mothering, and we've really lost. It's painted as like it's almost like there's a flavor of being self-involved or selfish, that if you're trying to tend to your own needs, that like that's not okay. And I mean, I say this all the time, it's so cliche, but if we listen to the flight attendants, they say put your own oxygen mask on first. If you don't do that, then you're unconscious and you can't help anyone else. If you put
Mhm.
it on first, you're available to support other people. And we have to get back to that kind of orientation, that we have to fill our cup.
I think it also goes back to that word that you said of decolonization,
Mm.
because we have to like unravel the things that were given to us without knowing. And a lot of that is that hyper individual, I mean, to throw about around a bunch of buzzwords, right?
Totally.
Like hyper individualism. Yeah, and I know the oxygen mask is the first thing I thought of as well. And but it's also like, and I see this in my massage practice. Sometimes the only time I will see someone is when they are pregnant, because that's when they have permission to care for themselves because they're caring for the baby. And it's like selfless then. Well, I'm caring for myself because I'm caring for my baby. And it's like, but why wouldn't you also care for you? Like, do you know, it's like,
Yeah.
when did and I also think about this in like reparenting situations where it's like, what would you want for your child? Would you want your child to feel like they can only take care of someone else? Or would you want your child to feel like they can take care of themselves? Because when I'm thinking about my children, I don't want them to feel burdened by only taking care of someone else. And so when you look at it like that from that position, you're like, sign me up for all the things.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's still so hard though.
It is. Oh my
And
God.
like I even find myself going through cycles of that. And I hold like outside of Mother Circle, like I hold space for a lot of, self-care, which I often don't even like calling it self-care because it just feels like roll the eyes now, right? But we're talking about something different.
Yeah.
Like the community care is a part of it. And like, okay, what if we all put our masks on? And we're doing this together rather than the I have to do this on my own over here. Like I think that's the difference. Like even in that message of you have to put your own oxygen mask on first, what is misinterpreted or implied is like go figure this out, go do it on your own so that you can then show up for your kids and everybody else. And it's like where, I grew up in a village of 200 people. It wasn't all rosy, but gosh, like the way people cared for each other, right? And that doesn't really exist anymore. So now we become mothers, and then even if you realize like I want community, I need community, I'm feeling really alone and isolated. It's like we've got to create the community, find the energy to create the community. Um, but yeah, so I always with the oxygen mask, I always feel a little bit in between with that. Like, yes, I know that. And it also does, it's so much easier when there are others doing that at the same time. And I think that might be a part of what Mother Circle is. It's giving permission to do that and and having conversations about why is it so hard? Like to get into the circle to then begin having the conversations like, why is this so hard? And then we begin to feel it and experience it.
Yeah, I also think there's this messaging, I don't know, out there in the world somewhere that, if this mothering thing doesn't come super easy to you, something
Mm.
is defect in you. And I think I see this a lot. Um, where maybe someone has one child or maybe they adopt one child and then it's like, oh, this is really, really hard, like super duper hard. And I thought that it would be more intuitive or something. Like I thought that I would figure this out because all you need is love, right? Like all you need is just to love this child and it'll all work out. And it's like we all, as wise women, right, know that that's not how that works. But
If only, if only
Yeah.
that
if
were true.
only, if only that were true. And it's like if we had a circle of women going, yeah, it's really hard and there's nothing wrong with you because of how hard it is. Maybe that person would have more than one child, more. Maybe that person would move towards adoption because I know from as someone who hasn't adopted someone, but I am a stepmom, adoption sounds really, really hard, really, really hard. And I think would I want to do that? I mean, just knowing me, I'm like a big yes. I've always felt that way. But I also feel like unless we speak to that piece of like no matter what the situation is, it's going to be hard, but that doesn't mean something's broken or wrong with you. I think things would be very different.
Yeah, and I think there's a layer in that, and there are a couple of threads that are coming through here that were kind of like what Karla was talking about earlier, that there's kind of this unspoken understanding that happens in these circles. And this is one of them, that all that you just said is so true, right? You are supposed to take to mothering like a duck to water, and it should just flow, and you should just be blessed, and flowers and birds and everything is unicorns and butterflies, and that's how it is, right? And then you add in adoption. You sought this out. You chose the path. So there's even less room to say, I'm tired. This is hard. It's not what I thought it was going to be. Right? I don't know. Right? You have this sort of added layer of this intricacy or this complexity that you made this decision consciously, right? And many people choose to have children consciously, obviously. There's an added layer when you choose to parent a child born from another woman's womb. right? And
I
that you
think
should just be
too,
grateful that you had this opportunity to be a mom.
Yeah. Oh, that's like all shamey feeling. Like
Ooh,
you
there's
yeah,
should be
a
grateful.
lot of layers of shame that I
a
think
lot.
are
Mm,
projected and also taken on in becoming a mother through
for
adoption.
some,
And
for some, yes.
those are old. I mean, they're old and they are rooted in a lot of systems and structures. And um, another layer that I felt that I've shared with other mothers who also resonate is just I felt like the stakes are higher.
Totally.
Like I am mothering a child that was born from another mother, and out in the adoption world, everybody, well, even beyond, pretty much everybody has people like to have their opinions about adoption. And a lot of that, there's a lot of projections and expectations and conclusions and judgments that exist. So it's like weeding through all of those to then, know who I am as a mother. But then there's this piece too, like I and mothering through birth and adoption, there were just added layers. Like I felt like it was a greater responsibility
Mhm.
because I am mothering someone else's child. And so I don't have time to take care of me. I don't have, like I like all of my resources should be going here or supporting the family or, you know, like all of so and that, the more I'm in it, like the more I began to realize like, okay, wait, that's not mine. Or like what again, coming back to like, what if all mothers, like if we as all mothers are taking care of ourselves and that isn't alone and isolated on my own, it is this communal aspect that's missing and where we just get to come and the intergenerational aspect of it of sharing different parts of the journey and understanding and different perspectives and not having to explain everything. But again, you said before, Sarah, being seen and held and heard. It's that whole witnessing that I think most mothers, however you become a mother, just never had through a rite of passage. Right? It's just like it wasn't really marked, it wasn't really held, there wasn't a lot of space. And that to me just feels really key.
Well, and you just said something that brought some thoughts of like resourcing. Like you were saying you felt like all of your resources should go to this, and yet we haven't said how the systems at play don't even leave you resourced anyway. So you're already starting with like a deficit of resources, and then you're putting pressure on yourself, or the systems are putting pressure on you to like only move their limited resources over this direction. It's like we're setting up to not do well, you know?
Yeah, I think there's another piece too that in terms of resource depletion, there's another piece that that Karla was, listing all of these, right, all of these um, thoughts and opinions about adoption. There are also a lot of assumptions that come into play about how and why we became adoptive mothers. And so we hold that, we hold the needs of our children, and many of us also hold the birth family in lots of different ways. Like I am in fairly regular contact with my son's birth mom, and have contact with the birth father. And he has a sibling that was adopted by another family that we are in touch with all the time and actually see each other very frequently. So those two boys have a very strong relationship. And so I describe, like, we are this wild, weird extended family. And I do feel this added responsibility, not just to get him over the threshold, and he's a boy, right? So he's a boy. So my goals have shifted. If I can get him over the threshold to 18 and he's alive, that's a goal. His boys are wild. um, but then there's this added layer of responsibility that Karla touched on. And then I also feel like I hold that birth family,
Mhm.
right? And I hold them in the way that, like, I get sort of very mama bear energy about this. Like, don't start making assumptions about who they are and what happened here, because what you're thinking is not true, right?
Yeah,
And so
right.
don't put that on them, right? And I get like, rah, very rah about it. Um, it's just another layer that we hold. And I think when we're in that space, and that's just my experience, this isn't to say that even in the world of adoption and mothering children that we have in birth, that again, every, experience is totally unique. And there are a lot of circumstances where, in whether it's foster adoption or whatever, where there is no contact and there's good reasons for that, right? So those things all exist, and we still hold those family members. We may not have contact with them, but they are there in the energy field, right? And it matters to the children, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
I just want to affirm that. Yeah, like everybody, every mother's really holding
yeah.
something more in some way, and it looks really different. And when I was going through Mother Circle, we actually reunified with my kids' birth family. We weren't from Ethiopia. We weren't able to travel, but now I'm in communication with them every week. And there's just been a big wedding happening over there and just back and forth. And but another piece within that that we all navigate is like what Michelle's doing it, everyone, every mother is doing it in her own way. How are we creating the space for them to define what their own relationship is within these families? Like, and that's a, you know, well, 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 our identity is changing through motherhood and it's not really marked. We usually get there's going to be a lot of identity issues for our kids, but we don't actually know what that is. I mean, and there's a lot of research that might predict, and there's a lot of adult adoptees that will share their experience. And so thankful for that. But again, every child is different and every mother's different.
You know what's also been interesting during this conversation? I have a really close friend right now who is a surrogate, and
Mm.
it's interesting how the things that she's talking about are also kind of like overlapping in what you all are sharing too. Like she's birthing the baby, she's
Mhm.
housing the child. I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't know the right language,
She's
but
growing the eyeballs.
yeah, she's growing the eyeballs, right? And but she's in close
Yeah.
conversation with like the mother, and I'm going to be helping her with postpartum stuff, but it's like really kind of cool to see how that there's some weaving together of that world too. And a lot of the things that you're talking about, Michelle, about she's experienced of like people saying making all kinds of assumptions about why the mother can't have children, and like there's just a lot of assumptions flying around about why she's even providing her womb, and like it's just like when do we get to a point in life when we can kind of like drop some of those assumptions so that we can actually hear what's happening, you know?
We can do that when we come into Mother Circle.
I was just gonna say the same
Absolutely. Yeah,
thing. Like
But
absolutely.
that's the space. And
we're
so,
naming the things that actually Mother Circle holds the space for, and like the ancestral piece. Like one of the things that we do is we our circle, all Mother Circles will introduce through the mother line, and for us, we make a lot of space for what that is. And in an 8 week period, it may sound different every time a mother introduces herself into the circle as she is moving through the integration of her own mother line, of her children and their lines. And so all of these pieces start to come in. Like what does that mean, and how we name even the women, for some who maybe didn't have a strong relationship with their mother, who is that who mothered them, and how do we the, the voice becomes their own. Like we get to define our own way of coming into motherhood, our own motherhood. We finish Mother Circle with, legacy. And in between, there's so many other places where we're touching on these pieces that I don't think any other space does. But it does feel very ancient and old, like we're remembering it when we're in there. It like our grandmothers were doing this, and now we're just trying to bring it back. And in a circle for adoption, we just have other layers to look at. And the fascinating thing is, as I was going through Mother Circle before training to be a facilitator, I was digging more into my family line. And I discovered there was a lot of adoption, officially and unofficially, where mothers were raising other children, and sometimes not children they knew. Like it was a really interesting piece to uncover. And so just having the space to do this in Mother Circle is really valuable.
I just, something is coming forward that I feel like I want to share in this space. Okay. Something that I've seen with hosting Mother Circle is that through what you're talking about, they start to realize that, as you introduce yourself every week, that changes a little bit, right? Like who mothered you. And there starts to be this like contraction that happens where it's like, well, of course I have this birth mother, but then when we invite like who else mothered you, it's like, oh, my best friend down the street's mom really did a big piece in mothering me, whatever, some story. And you see this like evolution of like learning the great grandma, the great great grandma, the line. And you start to see how like there's more than just one mother that really contributed to who you are. And I could see how like a circle for adopted mothers specifically could really allow in like look at how you're contributing to this child's life without being the birth mother, but being the mother. Do you know? It's like that quote by Clarissa at the end where she says like I don't remember the
If
exact
you're
quote.
lucky enough to have many mothers, something like that, right?
Yeah, yeah, that one.
Mhm.
And that felt so nourishing to me, but I know that has always been profound in every circle that I've held because we put so much pressure on mothers to be like perfect and to be the everything. But when we can release that pressure a little bit and realize that we have many mothers who mother us, and that when you have many mothers, you're very lucky. It's like that allows me that allows me as a mother to let my kids go to my friends so I can take a break. It allows me to like remember that my children need many mothers, not just me, and that truly is a gift. I could just see how that's like goes around for both parties. It's like you get to bring your children to other mothers, but then it's also like I am a mother for other people's children that are not mine.
Mhm. Yeah.
I mean, that's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Mother Circle really, it is so dear to me. I mean, it held me through many years of a lot of transitions, and I feel lucky enough that we have women who've repeated our circles. I repeated Mother Circle many times because every time moving through it, like sure, we walk away with the curriculum and we have this, but it really isn't intended. Like the local circles are beautiful when they begin to expand, and we're looking at how do we continue have some kind of continuation. But there's also the invitation to how does each mother who comes into this circle, who's integrating these parts of motherhood and finding her voice and um, looking at her line and defining her legacy, then where does that move into the community, right? Where does that move uniquely through them into other relationships? And that can look a million different ways, but um, yeah, I'll
I
just
think
leave
Well,
one of
it.
the ways that I think about that, and this might sound a little woo-woo, but um,
we
I
welcome the woo here. It's fine.
We love the woo.
I think about that when we are introducing ourselves and we name, right? Some of us name this is definitely not an expectation. It sort of comes forward, I think, through the weeks and through the experience as those identities shift and land differently. Um, but when I introduce my son's birth mother, right, I really hold her in that space because I know, I mean, I do trauma work in my professional life, right? Part of why I do that is because I know when something traumatic happens, it's like throwing a rock into a pond, into a still pond, and there are all those ripples. Healing is the same way. When we start to heal trauma, when we start to heal disconnection, it's another rock in the pond, and the ripples are profound. And I just know as we all come to Mother Circle and we are healing through the lines, right? Then we are changing women and we are changing communities and we are changing culture. And so I know every time I name her in that circle, I mean, I'll say, did you feel that on Monday? Right. But I know energetically, right? There's healing that's happening vibrationally or energetically, however you want to look at it, right? And that there will come a point in time where that becomes a felt experience. I know it just happened. I have been bringing things to a consignment shop, and then they reject all these things because I think they're only allowed, like, if you bring in a box of 30, they can take 8, or like there's some formula that they have. Because I literally have brought things in with tags and they're like stained and whatever. And I'm like, it has tags.
Like,
And then I was bringing them to Goodwill, and then it occurred to me she has had 2 more children since our situation happened. And I thought, why am I not packing these up and giving them? I'd rather her have them, right? So I just shipped the first box to her. And we had this really lovely exchange afterward. It mattered. There's a connection. Now she knows whenever she puts on the little, dinosaur hat, right, on her son, that was our son. It was his hat, right? There's a I don't like a transmission, right? That
mhm,
happens, and it
mhm.
matters, right? We are really, I mean, it sounds corny and cliche to say, but we are really changing, right? We are building mother culture every single time we do this, every time we have these conversations.
Yeah. That reminds me of my mom saved everything from whenever I was a child, but my mom died whenever my oldest son was 2. So everything she had was like girl stuff because I was the only child she had. But then I had a daughter, and so my dad brought over all this box of like baby clothes, and I'm going through it and I'm like, this doesn't mean anything to me.
Mm.
Because I was a baby, but I know that it meant so much to my mom that she like kept it. And
Yeah,
so I totally relate with that like transmission that you're talking about because I mean my mom like saved my training like potty training underwear and I've been using it for my daughter and I'm like this is weird but
yeah,
it's there and it's like there's something kind of magical about it.
yeah,
Every time I've used like a blanket or like some other clothes that she saved or whatever, it's always like, wow, this was mine. Hmm, it's interesting. It's
yeah.
very there's an energy exchange to it for sure. Yeah. All right, my friends, this has been really lovely. I really appreciate sharing what you have about Mother Circle, but also about the specifics of adoption. I think it just feels really good that you guys are creating a space for this. If you could you tell anybody who's listening where they could maybe go to connect with the adoption Mother Circle specifically?
Yes, mothercircleadoption.com. That's where you'll find everything. And we do have a beautiful, we have a guide, a little PDF guide that we've created if people want to just dabble in the work. We have our next Mother Circle will be live in the fall, online. And in between, we run workshops and events and then separately through our work lives, sometimes we are in other places where we introduce this work. But Mother Circle Adoption
Okay,
dot
great,
com is going to be the best.
great. Do you have
Thank you,
any
Sarah.
social media handles, either one of you, or
Not really at this. I mean,
that's fine.
In the
no.
world.
Nobody wants to be on social media, okay? Like, can we just say that?
Um,
Nobody wants to be there.
but we are making more we're creating more relationships with a lot of the providers to adoption, and and we know that adoptive moms move everywhere in the world. But yeah,
Okay, great.
thank you.
This has been lovely. Thank you so much. I'm glad we finally got this one on the books and made happen. Sometimes,
Thanks for having us, Sarah.
Yes,
yeah,
thank you so much.
We're excited to move this into the world, and so any opportunity we get to talk about it, we really are so grateful.
yeah, I love it. I love it. So thank you so much, my friends.
Take care.
Take care.
If you liked what you heard today, consider supporting Woven on Patreon. Your support helps sustain the quiet labor of community care. lifting up the life and work of a body worker and tender of soft spaces. Even small acts of generosity make a big impact, nurturing the kind of care and connections that our community needs. Thank you for listening, for sharing, and for being part of this web of support. Until next time, stay soft, stay rooted.